All right, everybody, welcome to the Middle Ground Mike. We have got a great guest on today, Mark Smoler. Is that how you say your name, Mark?
Yep, sure is.
All right. Everybody, are we living in a culture, Mark and I were talking about this, that's built on spin, blaming, outrage, or what we all like to call it, fake outrage these days. Can we still find clarity in the middle? Today on the Middle Ground Mike, we're going to sit down, which we're already doing, with Mark Smoler, outspoken, bold, humorous, definitely seems like a really cool guy, and he's unapologetically persuasive. So, let's jump into it. Mark, hey, introduce yourself to everybody. Let us know who you are and what you're about.
Well, thanks for having me on your great podcast.
Thank
I
you.
just finished my second book and it's called The Clinton Consequences. And it's just something I'm passionate about. It's not, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not bashing Bill Clinton. It's not bashing people who vote Democratic. It's not bashing people who would like to vote Republican, but just don't like President Donald Trump. It's pointing out facts over a period of 10 years. I worked on this book for 10 years. I saw this over the Obama years. And the last two chapters do something that a lot of books and broadcasts don't. I occasionally watch Fox News. I try to stay away from the news. What I don't like about Fox is that it seems like they like to poke fun at the left and show clips of like The View and then mock them. I don't think that does anything to build a bridge, which we need to do, and I'm sure we're going to talk about. I'm sure you're a fan of.
Yes.
So the last two chapters, I talk about how to get back to commonality and respect. We were talking about respect. You got to have respect for your opponent, for your neighbor, whatever. It makes it easier to live with them.
Yeah.
And so the last two chapters talk about how we can, I call it reverse the curse. I just wanted to point out the book is, because I've already had some people on YouTube and social media say, oh, you're a Clinton basher, you're this. And I said, no, you should buy my book and read it. And thanks for proving my point, because now I do write a chapter about how the left tends to, it's not just the left, but the left tends to make up words, terms, names, and definitions. So calling me a Clinton basher is just trying to bully and silence me. So that's a little bit about the book. I'm originally from Chicago, but I live
Man,
in
go
California.
Lions.
Love California. Yeah, I'm reeling a little bit from Dallas. I said to my friends in Dallas, thanks, Jerry, for trading Micah Parsons to Green Bay. Yeah, the
My
Bears got
God, I know.
more hope, and yeah. So, but I'm passionate about food and fitness. I raised my three awesome kids on my own for 16 years. And yeah, I'm passionate and outspoken. I don't sugarcoat things. That's about it.
Yeah. And that's what this world needs more of. So turn this down just a little bit. There you go. Um, who is it? I did an interview with a great lady. Her name was Dr. Tania Davis, and she talked a lot about what was it? Leaders not being able to do feedback. That's the best way to put it. And it's kind of like what you're saying. Like, hey, it proves it, right? Because people don't want to hear something outside of their realm of thought. They want an echo chamber. It's the best way to put it. Echo chamber. And I tried to tell people, hey, I started out as a libertarian at 13. I started reading Thomas Sowell, this, that, and the other thing. But then I started moving more towards the center as I got older, because I realized that n- not everything is, you know, that easy. So I guess it's just kind of, it's hard, man, especially, and doing what you did is 16 years. My dad raised me as a single father for a long time. And yeah, man, I learned a lot of use of gold. Don't argue.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, I'm the oldest of four. So I always grew up speaking my mind. I think sometimes you're just born with a natural inclination, and that doesn't mean you should just run and say, well, this is the way I was born, this is the way I am, so take it or leave it. You can still learn. But I've always been outspoken. It's gotten me in trouble many times as well. But there's a famous expression that says, if you don't stand up for what you believe in, you'll fall for anything. And that's one of the reasons I speak up and speak out. But I don't force my views on other people. That's something, this might be a quick sidebar, but I was talking to a small business owner who, we're in Southern California, so people are pretty chill, cool, tolerant. And he said, and he was in his 50s and fairly old school, originally from Europe. I don't know if he was German but basically from, that part of Europe originally, and still had a little bit of the accent. So you can still, he had very traditional values, but he's a small business owner, successful. And he said, I don't care what you are. I don't care who you're attracted to. I don't care, what name you want to call yourself or what group you're in. Just don't force your beliefs on me. Like, go do your activities, in the privacy of your own home, but don't force it on me. And if I don't like it, because either I don't understand it, or I've been alive for 55 years and I don't want to be exposed to it, or my religion just says this is not acceptable, don't call me a name. That's not going to win anybody over. Just how about live and let live, or go have fun in your house and I'll go have fun in my house. And as long as we're not keeping each other up at night, we can say hi to each other. And that's a problem I have. And I think that's why it's good to speak up. Have you ever watched Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love Larry. Yeah, he's great.
Yes. So there's a great episode, and somebody played it for Trump and he was laughing and he said, number one, thanks for the publicity. But he's like, I like it. It's humor. But it's where Larry gets sick of people. And so he starts wearing a MAGA hat in Los Angeles, and no one will go around him. No one will hang. Like he's driving his Prius and he accidentally swerves into this like Harley biker. And the guy's like, pull over, I'm going to kill you. And Larry puts his window down and he picks up MAGA hat and he goes, I'm really sorry, sir. And the guy goes, oh, no problem. I mean, it's all this stuff. He doesn't want to have lunch with someone he finds irritating. And when the guy shows up for lunch, Larry puts his hat on. He goes, nice to see you. And the guy goes, oh, I need an appointment. And so he leaves. It's just funny that he was, I mean, as a Republican, I thought it was hilarious. It's okay to laugh at yourself, number one. But number two, he was kind of bringing to light the fact that people are so alienated. And why? I mean, I would never wear a MAGA hat. I would never wear a rainbow hat. Okay. It's just me. Let's just say I had a MAGA hat on Sunday morning and I'm going to church and my cool neighbors have rainbow hats on and they're going to march in a parade. I'm definitely going to say, hi, guys, have fun, have a great day, good to see you. And I hope they are as well. That's the way it should be.
Most definitely. What was I going to say?
Talked about, so you're a Lions fan, I'm a Bears fan. Doesn't it break your heart when you see on YouTube fighting where I saw fights amongst Bears fans on YouTube, and that was embarrassing, but it was heartbreaking. Like, come on, guys, it's football. We all paid $300 for this ticket. Let's just get along. And Monday's going to come, and we're not going to remember what we were fighting about. So why would you fight somebody?
This year was probably the first year. I think of that. I don't have my season tickets. I went from 3 years ago paying 1,800 or so for 3 seats way up in the upper level.
Wow.
To almost 5,000 this year if I'd have kept them.
Oh.
And I'm like, I'm really happy that we're doing good, but you haven't even been to the Super Bowl yet. Why are you so expensive?
That's just too much money.
Yeah. It's a slap in the face to all of us who've been going when you were horrible. Oh my gosh. I mean, the best thing that ever happened to them was Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
I mean, perfect coach. He was on the 0-16 team. So it's just wild. The guy from that team is, lean the lines to relevancy.
Right.
And the good thing
You know
is
what?
they're not relying on one player anymore.
Right. Right. So, what most people love about Dan Campbell is he's authentic.
Yes.
Even if they don't like his style, which I've never met anybody who doesn't, but, and people say he's very fitting for that team in that city. But let's just say somebody says, I don't like his style. It's kind of like Ditka. When Ditka was coach, there were plenty of people who didn't like his style, but everybody said, but he's credible and honest. And it's bizarre to me how people gang up on President Trump for being authentic and honest. At least he's real, believe me. Listen, when he's talking about something great that he accomplished, and then he rips on Joe Biden, and I'm like, oh, why did you have to do that? You should have stopped 30 seconds
Yes.
ago. But at least he's being honest. Yes, could he improve? Of course. It was the same thing about I think, in my experience, to bring it to what we're talking about, is I think Obama was much more authentic and congruent than Clinton.
Yeah,
Didn't
by
they call
far.
him Slick Willie, or
Yes, Slick
Slick
Willie.
Billy, something like that? He was, and that's the thing a lot of people don't like about Newsom. Newsom is very slick. He's doing the hand things. Oh, like people make fun of him. If you don't like somebody, but they're authentic and congruent, and they're not a bully and they're not rude, I think it's easier to respect them. Something we keep talking about, respect.
Yeah.
And I respect an opponent or an enemy as long as they reveal who they actually are to me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, Obama, don't kill me here. I did vote for him in 2008. But the big reason I voted for him is he ran on going after the banks. Because what those banks did was flat out fraud.
Right.
And how none of them got prosecuted as individuals
Right.
is wild to me. They committed flat out fraud. If you or I were to do that, we'd be sitting in prison. Still to this day, and Iceland was, they jailed a lot of their banking executives over it. And, and I didn't expect him necessarily to go that far. But what I didn't like is when he went in there and he goes, well, we got to give these guys bonuses to keep talent. And I'm like, but they bankrupted the nation. That's not keeping talent. You're keeping the problem. Like, when he did that, I'm like, you just handed like several $100 billion to a bunch of rich people who put a lot of average people out on the street.
Yeah.
And
there was probably
I lost a lot of respect.
constituent pressure and all that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't feel like Trump would have caved to that pressure.
Probably not, especially in his second term and last term. Yeah, he doesn't give a rip. And you do see that. I remember hearing Obama kind of, beating the horse, so to speak, the first 2-3 years. And then when he came up for re-election, he kind of toned it down a little bit. And then the first or second year he was in his back-to-back, he kind of toned it. He still was middle ground. And then third and fourth year, he let it rip. And I'm not criticizing him at all. I'm just saying what I saw, and I think what a lot of political commentators would say as well. And that's just being smart.
Yeah, if I'm correct, wasn't he called the deporter in chief?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that's conveniently forgotten about too much.
Yep. Yep.
But kind of getting a little bit back to the Clintons. Do you think really Hillary really is behind a lot of these people that get killed? Just as like a funny, I mean, like,
My first inclination is to say no. I just don't think someone that famous can get away with that. It's fun to think about. It would make a fun movie or a fun Black Mirror episode. We see how easily people get caught nowadays.
Yeah.
There's just so many trails. And no, I don't. And honestly, I don't care. I don't. It doesn't bother me. I'm not one of those staunch Fox News people that's like, put Hillary in Clinton, put Hillary in jail, put her in jail. I don't care.
The Fox News of 20 something years ago was good when it was a
Oh
little bit
yeah,
with Alan Combs. They had it was very balanced and it was civil.
yeah.
But now it's turned into a circus just like the other networks.
Yes, it is. It's fear mongering. I used to love Sean Hannity. Now I can't listen to him. All he does is whine and complain and make fun of people. And that just doesn't resonate with me. And like I said, and I know you agree with, I want to find a solution. But you know what? If we all know this, if there is it's just like hospitals feed you the worst food because there's no money in healthy people. They want to
Right.
feed you garbage and have you coming back, just like Fox and CNN want to get you irritated and angry and sad. And then when you go to tell people, they're like, I don't want to hear that. Fine, I'm going to go back and watch another episode of CNN or Fox. They keep you coming back. So I'm not a part of that, and I hate to keep bringing it up, but that's why I wrote, the last two chapters in the Clinton Consequences to demonstrate how we can be the change you want to see in the world. Plus, who does I mean, if you have kids, nieces, nephews, any young people that look up to you, wouldn't you love to give them an inspirational idea for change as opposed to being the old curmudgeon or the complainer? Or let's say you've got a liberal niece who goes to, I don't know, Harvard, and she's got pink hair and piercings, and she insists that you call her she, they, them, and you're the exact opposite, and she makes fun of your NRA sticker on your pickup truck. Wouldn't it be great to be an example to her? Because in 10 years, her whole life's going to change. And maybe you'll be the reason that she opens her eyes or treats people respectfully or doesn't get so upset over the other side.
Yeah, a lot of it I've got a 15-year-old son, and the one thing it's that lack of connection that we grew up with. And I don't want to say like forced connection, right? Like you were forced to engage people.
Uh-huh.
The worst thing you did is pick up the phone and go, "Hey, is your fridge running? Yeah, better go get it." Click. I did that a couple times,
Oh, I did that 100 times.
and once I figured
Worse.
out what star 67 was, I was in a good shape.
Right, right.
I told my son about it. He's like, "What's star 67?" I was like, "Well, George Washington." Some of the stuff I show him that I had from when I was a kid, I had one of those little black boxes, you could use for the payphone. They went ding ding ding, and you could make a phone call. I learned about that on God, what was the forum back then? But you bought a little like a remote thing from Radio Shack, and you changed it around, and it made the noises of quarters. So how the payphones worked is they worked on noises. When you put that quarter in, the machine measured the weight, but the phone company only knew by the sound it made.
Right.
So you
So
just
we
went,
used to put slugs in too. We had slugs, remember?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Once I got that little box, I would just be like, and my dad would be like, "What are you doing?" My dad's like, "I'm walking away. You're not getting me put in prison." Times have
If you think
changed.
about, yeah, times have changed. That little thing, compare that to some of the stuff we see nowadays that people just get a slap on the wrist. It's insane.
It is. I mean, that's God. Think of the Clintons. They're the ones who Bill. A lot of the cybercrime rule out lines and set all that framework up for everybody.
Yeah.
And of course, back then it was definitely a lot more about law and order than it even is now when it comes to cybercrimes. Because now it's just more about prevention than it is prosecuting people. Because they spend so much money chasing ghosts.
Chasing ghosts, and there's so many people taking part in those activities.
Like high pressure sales, everything.
Really apply to everything.
I've learned from a lot of great people. I still love 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey. And he says, let me think about one of the habits. One of the habits is, so what does Covey say about that? Something like seek first to understand, then to be understood. So I think by doing that, listening twice as much as you talk, and then reflective listening, that causes your, I'm sorry if I had anything, just things like that. You have to be genuine. You can't say, so what I heard you say is, and they'll feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. I felt that way once too. What I found is I hate that stuff. Put it into your own language and um, try to match their emotional level of concern. So if your teenager's freaking out, if you kind of freak out with them, it's more relatable. You don't have to go quite below the line that they do. You don't have to, yell, swear, cry. But with a teenager, if you're stoic and calm like a parent should be, sometimes that demonstrates that you don't care and you don't listen. And that's why they say, well, you don't understand. You're not listening. So you kind of got to go below the line with them a little bit. Oh, I can imagine how frustrated. Don't tell them, yeah, I was a teenager once too. Just be like, man, I'd be so upset too if all my friends were doing this except for me and I was the only one. No wonder you're yelling at me. So some stuff like that. And again, it helps with kids. It helps with clients. It helps with everybody. And then I'm also a big fan of Chris Voss. So he's he's FBI
Yeah.
hostage, former FBI hostage negotiator, and he's got a lot of great stuff. One of his lines that I absolutely love is, "How am I supposed to do that?" He's a big on empathy. He's big on reflective listening. He's big on holding your stance. And so if you have a certain price point you need to be at, if you have a certain curfew you're trying to get your teenager to cooperate with, you can't budge on it. And that's a tough thing. So either you have to overcompensate, you have to quote somebody $150 knowing you can go down to 125, or when your teenager is going to ask, can I come home at midnight? You need to say something ridiculous like 9 o'clock in order to start off with. So when you give to say, all right, 11, I think 11 is a good compromise, but
Oh yeah.
that's if you, that's basically how you part friends. I don't want to say win the negotiation. I don't want to say close the deal, because as Chris Voss would say, that shows winning and losing, and you don't want to have winning and losing in your mind. You have a reason that you came to the negotiation in the first place. You have a reason you're quoting that price in the first place, or that curfew in the first place. So why deviate from it? You're just going to feel like you lost, and then that kind of takes a toll on the emotional bank account of that relationship.
Yeah. And that's definitely relating out,
Definitely
the part
relating,
you talk about relating to the
talk about
kids. I
relating
can
to the kids.
definitely
I can definitely
understand that.
understand that.
My son
My son is
plays like the balancing
plays
act
like the balancing
perfectly.
act
He's
perfectly.
head of his church youth
Head of his
group,
church youth group,
but a lot of his
but a
friends are
lot of
what,
his friends are
a
what
lot of people
a
would call
lot of
woke.
people call woke.
Mm.
And I told him, I
And
said,
I told
man,
him, man,
you balance that
you
perfect.
balance
I'm
that.
like, is that
Like, is
an
that
outsider
an
looking in
outsider
would be like,
looking in would be like,
that doesn't work.
that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, I'm
So I
really
told him, I
proud of
said,
you
I'm
for being
really
able
proud of
to,
you for being able to,
because that's something
because
that
that's
I don't,
something that I don't.
when I was that
When
age
I
and
was that age and
maybe not bright enough
maybe
to
not bright enough
differentiate
to
things,
differentiate things,
I said, you're doing a better job
you're
than
doing
I
a better
probably
job
ever
than
would
I
have.
probably.
I agree. And you stated it perfectly, but yeah, I agree. I don't think I could have at that age.
I would have just been like,
I would
what
have
is
just been
going
like,
on
what is
here?
going on?
I use a
I
perfect
use a
example of
perfect
how things went
example of how
crazy.
things went crazy.
RuPaul.
Paul.
Nobody cared about
Nobody
RuPaul
cared about RuPaul
because RuPaul was like,
because
I'm
RuPaul
me,
was like, I'm me,
like me or hate me,
like me or hate me,
but I'm going to do my
but
thing.
I'm gonna do my thing.
And a lot of
And a
conservative
lot
people
of
partied
conservative
with him
people partied with
Mhm.
because that was
because
just,
that was just
wasn't putting it on
wasn't
you.
putting it on you.
Just said, this is
Just
me,
said, this is me.
and I think that
And I think
if
that
people understood
people
that that is
understood that
what
that is
more
what
society
more
wants,
society wants.
they don't really
Like, they
care
don't
what
really
you do at
care what
home.
you do at home.
just how you
Just
present
how
yourself
you
when you're
present
talking to
yourself when
them.
you're talking to them.
Well, I continually hear people on both sides who, and it's a different age group. I'm trying to unwind a whole lot here, but I hear a lot of people say, that's where I draw the line when you're trying to indoctrinate the children and you're putting that stuff in books and in the schools. And I'm so thankful my kids are, my youngest is in college. The other two are, in their late 20s. I don't have to worry about them coming home with a book because I would have lost it. I mean, I would have lost it. And so kind of to your point, yeah, if you want to be LGB, whatever it is, fine, but don't push those beliefs on other people. Just like I know there's plenty of people, and I remember 2 or 3 extremely liberal Democrats being upset that, back in the 80s, we would pray in school and or say the Pledge of Allegiance, depended on the teacher. And you always looked at those people like they were a little cuckoo because it was so infrequent. But just imagine now, if in a public school with the amount of diversity we have here, we were talking earlier about the amount of, is it how do we describe them? Is it Middle Eastern people, Indian population? What is it in Michigan?
Middle Eastern.
Middle East.
Middle East. So there's a lot, right? There's just a
Yeah.
lot. It's the largest area
in the United
of,
States. Yeah.
okay. So I didn't say that right for you. People understand what I'm saying. Imagine if they started mandatory Quran prayers at 3 p.m. before you're allowed to leave school. Or just imagine if you moved to Salt Lake City for a great job and it's a public school, it's not a Mormon school. And before breakfast and lunch are served, every kid has to say, I don't know, some sort of Mormon prayer, recite from the Mormon. You wouldn't want that because you didn't sign up for that. So it's the same thing with what we're seeing with, and it's very easy to see why they're doing it. But like the NFL, there's a couple of very flamboyant male cheerleaders in Minnesota. And some people are saying, well, they've always had male cheerleaders. Number one, no, they haven't. There's 2 teams that don't have cheerleaders, the Bumbling Bears, who got rid of them after they won the Super Bowl. I don't know why. And the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know if the Steelers have ever had cheerleaders, but the Bears have not had cheerleaders since 85, 86. So to say they've always had male cheerleaders, some teams don't even have female cheerleaders. It doesn't mean that you can prance out male cheerleaders wearing makeup and dancing the same way women do it and wearing the exact same outfits that women do and expect people to take it. And I was talking to a liberal friend of mine and he's like, I think it's great because now I'm going to watch football. And I said, hold on. You're not going to watch football. And I said, let me ask you something. Do you watch the Bravo network? And he's like, of course, my partner and I watch it, morning, noon, and night. I said, are there any NRA commercials on the that network? And he said, I don't think so. He said, you're talking about the National Rifle Association. I said, yeah. I said, do they advertise the NFL on Bravo? And he said, no. I said, how about, do they have any like men dressed in flannel, wearing a beard, promoting Duck Dynasty or brawny paper towels or I don't know, whatever, supercharged brake pads or whatever? And he's like, of course not. So, he understood where I was going. I was like, well, then I said, it's indoctrination. It's Roger Goodell, who everybody boos, and he deserves those boos, trying to just bring in this massive audience. I'm not going to mention the pop singer and the tight end,
Gosh.
but I swear part of that is to bring in people who normally don't watch football. It's
1,000%.
It's about money, 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 money.
Yes. I mean, that's just a sad fact of the matter. When you kind of talk about that, even like talk like with your part about like the consequences. Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton. Well, in theory, trying to balance a
trying to
budget,
balance
right?
it,
You know, even
right?
though we
Even
all kind of
though
know
we
it
all
was
kind of
more
know it was more
math games,
math games,
but they got it
but
done.
they got it done.
They
They
accomplished something.
accomplished something,
And
and
I'm not a big,
I'm
big
not a
Bill Clinton fan,
big
but
Bill Clinton fan, but
like some of
like
what you talk about in
some of
like
what
your
you talk
book
about,
is
like your book, is
how some of his
how
scandals
some of his scandals
changed the cultural norms.
cultural norms.
Give us a little bit of
Give us a
perspective on
bit of
that.
perspective on
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up. That is something, again, it's what a lot of people get upset about. I can remember being at work and the news playing, the Clinton press conferences and breaking down Lewinsky and all that stuff and what she said and this and that. And all of a sudden, people were saying, every president does this. What do you care? He's keeping us safe, you know, excusing his behavior. And I started thinking, I know why they're doing this, because if they can excuse his behavior, then they can also excuse their ghosts in their closets. And
Yes.
I've seen it now transfer. So that generation of parents, it got older and they were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And the men were on Ashley Madison and the women were on Facebook. And they weren't paying attention to their family and to their marital vows and their partner. And they started doing things that were immoral. And when anybody questioned them, they just whipped out the Clinton spin, you know, and made up words and terms and definitions and said, I'm expressing myself and I'm not a cheater, I'm polyamorous and whatever it is. And then mind your own business, that stuff. And I've got all the exact quotes from Clinton, in my book. There's one where, and he shifted gears plenty of times, and I'm sure he had some great advice or some great advisors, is a better way to say it. But, where he would say, obviously, depends on what your definition of is. We did not have sexual relations. So he started spinning and making up words and spinning definitions. And I try to stay off. I call it selfish media. I try to stay off of it, but somebody had something that I thought was pretty humorous, and they posted, and if you have liberals and Democrats who listen to your podcast, I'm going to apologize to them in advance. This is not all of them, so just listen with an open mind, please. But somebody said, why do liberals keep making up words? And somebody said, it's hard for somebody to realize how moronic you are if you keep changing the definition of a moron. And I thought that was funny, and I mention it in the book. There's going to come a time when one of your friends gets arrested for being a drunk driver, and your other friends are going to say, don't call them that. They're a thrill seeker. They have a disease. You're going to be an employer and you're going to write somebody up for constantly being late. I'm not talking about 5 minutes. And I'm not talking about one occasion. I'm talking about an employee who you politely say, hey, man, you're 20 minutes late. You're 30 minutes late. You didn't call. It's not fair to the rest of the team. It puts us behind schedule, yada, yada. Please, if this is like the fifth time, if it happens again, I have to write you up. And then finally you go to write them up and they say, you can't write me up. I'm arrival challenged. It's a disorder. And if you write me up, I'm going to sue you because I have a disability called arrival challenge. I mean, they're already trying to change and eliminate pedophile. You're now a minor attracted person.
So
And
weird.
yeah, the problem with that is number one, you're trying to force your views on everybody else. Secondly, you're trying to deflect accountability. You are constantly changing. So it's like illegal alien is now an undocumented worker. I guarantee it's going to change again and again and again. So there's no consistency. I mean, I understand taking a derogatory word and eliminating it, as we saw in the 30s, 40s, 50s. Now we don't use that word; we use this word instead. But that's not what happens, and and we're changing words. Americans are changing words, terms, and definitions in order to shame, bully, and silence people who disagree with them. And the words, terms, and definitions are constantly changing. So that shows me that the reasons for changing lack credibility. The other thing about it is that, and kind of what we talked about before, is when you shame, bully, and silence people, now they don't want to say anything. And that's how you control and manipulate people. And that's not good. That's why people love living in America. That's why people flock here. There should be freedom of speech. There should be many different places where you can go to worship the God you believe in. And we should be able to all come together and eat together, break bread together, and laugh together without forcing our beliefs on other people. And something real quick before I let you, fire back and give me your opinion. I was never a fan of Chappelle. Like you said, that something Paul, whatever is, I know who that person is. They're a cross dresser, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, RuPaul.
Well, Yeah, RuPaul. So I knew who Dave Chappelle was, but I never saw his stuff. And people are like, oh, you got to see his James Brown impersonation or whatever it is, Rick James or whatever it is. Anyway, people are they're gonna correct me and say it was so and so. It was Rick. I think it was Rick James, but whatever. I just never watched Chappelle, and I started watching. I'm like, he's funny, but the reason I found out who he was, 10 years after his peak of popularity, is because it's like, you're not going to silence me. This is an art. Humor is an art. You don't get to tell me, you could tell me what isn't funny, but you don't get to tell me I'm not allowed to use that joke. Who do you think you are? And he really became, and I started hearing him say more conservative, traditional things as well. Man, like I said, live and let live, relax. And what liberals and Democrats do is they say, oh, I believe in that, but you're being racist. You're being like, why do you hate? I said, just because you didn't vote for the person doesn't mean you should hope that they get assassinated or jailed, or you want to see them fail. Or I remember one time during COVID, a young lady, and I gave her a lecture at the DMV. She said, I hope Trump dies of COVID. And I gave her a lecture, and she said, mind your own business. And I said, I am. It looks like your mom did a pretty crappy job of raising you, so I'm going to tell you how to behave in public. You don't say that stuff. You don't hope the president of the United States dies. You shouldn't hope that another human being dies of COVID. That shows the evil in your heart. It makes you look bad. It doesn't make Trump look bad. I forgot where I was going with that. I said a bunch, but basically, if you live and let live and stop taking the moral high ground, that's where I was going with it. A lot of liberals and Democrats will say, like, you're an anti-vaxxer. So they're making up these silly words, calling you names, trying to bully you. That's the only reason they're doing it. And then when you say, no, I'm just going to wait and see how things, turn out or whatever, my spouse got it and she had all kinds of side effects. Or how about this? My twin brother got the vaccine and he had all kinds of complications. Therefore, for medical reasons, I'm going to wait and see because we have the exact same DNA and blood makeup. And they would still say, well, you're killing people. You're killing people if you don't get the vaccine. So it's always the moral high ground. And I wish they would just stop with that because, to say things like, let's just say you're for locking down the border and changing some of the laws. And they say, well, you're this and you're that and you're this. And they just make up words and call you names. If they would just stop and say, disagree, and we're just going to agree to disagree, and we're going to go have a nice steak together, that would be one thing. But they take the moral high ground and say, well, that means you hate people of color. That means you this, that means, and it doesn't. And I don't hear, I'm sure it happens, but I don't hear people on the right side of the aisle doing that to people on the left.
Yeah, I don't think, at least it's just not as, maybe it's not as noticeable.
I don't think it's as often.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
definitely not as
definitely.
often.
It's become more commonplace because social media and the algorithm, they really push people that way. You know what I mean? And it,
Right.
what do they call it? emotional tugging headlines or something of that nature. I forget the proper term, but that's what drives a lot of this, because the whole goal of a lot of this is to get you to react like that. That's the algorithm wants you to wig out, because it's no different than CNN going, the cat got burned alive. And, not endorsing cats getting hurt, but, like an apartment burning down and they couldn't get in there, But then the news are going to go, the cat was burned alive, which really takes it out of context.
Right. There's a lot of dishonesty. I tell people, I think the internet's worse now than it was 15, 20 years ago. I mean, it used to take you a while to look at, whatever. Why did my jeans shrink in the dryer? How to prevent jeans. My favorite pair of jeans shrunk in the dryer. You'd have to do the page would load, but you'd have 2 websites to click on that had legitimate advice. Now you're going to get American Eagle trying to sell you new jeans. You're going to get people complaining about the American Eagle or whatever I think that's the company with the actress that's doing their stuff that I have no idea why people are upset. I'm not paying attention to it. And then you might get an eBay pop-up on buy jeans that don't shrink. And you have to click down, you have to go to 3 search pages to find someone who is still lying. Well, I put baking soda in my dryer and it makes my jeans not shrink. And nobody challenges that post. It's up there. And so people start putting baking soda in their dryer with jeans to prevent them from shrinking. There's so much dishonesty out there. And then I have to quote Mike Tyson. I love when he said, and I'm probably going to misquote him, but he said something like, the internet has made it easy for y'all to run your mouth without any fear of, and disrespecting people without any fear of getting punched back for it or something like that. He's basically talking about, the internet's made it really easy for you to disrespect people because there's no recourse.
Yeah.
And that's what happens too. So then all of a sudden you get people reposting, like you said, and they're on selfish media and they're promoting things. And then they're, they find out they were wrong because they jumped to a conclusion. And another thing I touch on in the book is, when was the last time you actually heard somebody say, I'm sorry? Apologies are few and far between. And then when people do apologize, they say, my bad, or they say, I didn't mean to do it, but very, very few people. Yes. So few people say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Or they say this, I'm sorry. And then the reporter will ask, are you sorry because you got caught? So if people would just say, I'm sorry I did that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I did that. I'll try not to do it again. Think about, that's so rare. You'd be like, everybody's got such an ego nowadays, especially in America. If you start saying, I'm sorry I did that, I'll try not to do that again, you're going to gain popularity.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of talking about that a little bit is, social media has kind of made it like, those kids would like when I was in high school where you could tell that emotional. Right. So they generally might have been special ed or whatever. Right. Now the anger that a lot of those kids felt, the internet has become a place where they can just be what they want to be. And that fuels
the fire.
the other problem.
Right.
Yeah. And now this kid who would have been focused on, getting treatment in high school now has an avenue to put that out there. So now he rejects the treatment.
And that's what happens when you eliminate accountability from society.
Yeah. Like Ronald Reagan said, we've got to focus on going after the person who breaks the law and not society.
Right.
And because you can't change a society that easy, but you can go after the law breakers.
Right. And you've got to define a law and agree on the definition of the law instead of skirting around it and changing it. And that's, another thing it's another consequence that I talk about in the book. And that's why I wrote the book, is to point out how we got here. I often ask people, do you wonder how America got so screwed up? Do you wonder how we got so divisive? Do you wonder how 75% of the stuff on your screen, whether it's a phone or a streaming service or a comedy special, became so perverted and corrupt. And do you just wonder how we became, us against them? I describe it when you don't have accountability and you allow people to act out on their feelings. And, it's funny. I call it traditional values, and the left calls it systemic, whatever they want to call it, systemic, add a word after whatever they're trying to talk about or manipulate or criticize. There's nothing wrong with traditional values. Something I always, and I'll tell you a quick story, but I always ask young people who think they know everything. I'm like, so how did you learn that Christopher Columbus was racist or, had slaves or whatever? I don't even know why we don't celebrate that day anymore, but hopefully Trump will change it back. But why? Tell me about all this stuff you learned about Christopher Columbus, because you're 25 and I'm in my 50s. I've been on this earth 30 years longer. So I've been exposed to history for 30 years longer than you. How come I don't know about this, but you do? Well, I looked it up on the internet and blah, 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 blah. I said, so you had the freedom and the money to look it up on this thing called the internet that somebody invented, right? Yeah. Yeah. So throughout the last 50 years, because your parents are around their 50s, and then predominantly, let's focus on the last 20 years you've been alive. Society hasn't been that bad, has it? Yes, it has. We're racist and we're this and we're that. No, 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 no. You just told me that somebody invented this great thing called the internet. You have the freedom to look up whatever you want. You have the freedom to talk about it. You're in a school system that allows you to discuss it. Now, all of a sudden, people are saying, yeah, you're right. That sounds like a pretty good society to me. All you do is complain about it. And so I'll tell you the story. I don't like Starbucks, but it was the only thing around. I needed my afternoon Americano, and I'm walking in and I see this attractive young lady get out of her Tesla, and she walks in and her friend is sitting right by the door, and her friend is typing away on a Mac, and I order my Americano, but because everybody's ordering their fake coffee, sugar drinks, I have to wait and wait. It's fine. So I just happened to be waiting by where they were sitting. And I heard them say something about white male privilege. And
Oh my God.
I couldn't. I turned around and I said, ladies, I'm really sorry for butting in, but I'm going to. I said, couldn't help but notice you drove in a Tesla. She said, yeah. And I said, and we're here at Starbucks? Yeah. And the other one, who was a little more alternative, nothing wrong with that, she right away folded her arms. She slammed her MacBook down. I said, and you have a MacBook. You're wearing Chuck Taylor Converse. You're wearing Levi jeans. I said, do you realize everything you are touching and using and spending money on was invented by a white male? And the one who was driving the Tesla was like, I never thought about that. And the other one was, said something snippy. And I said, if you hate white men so much, why do you keep lining their pockets? Maybe you should think about and read about Howard Schultz's journey in starting Starbucks, and Elon Musk in starting Tesla. And I can't remember. I think I said Mr. Eli. Even Chuck Taylor was a white basketball player, and the people who started Converse and the internet and the people behind Apple. What was his name? They made a big movie about
Jobs and
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yep.
And just, all of that stuff. White men invented it. If you hate white men so much, here's the thing. You're sitting in a Starbucks using technology invented by white men, drinking coffee at a coffee shop invented by a white man, who all worked very hard. It wasn't like it was just handed to them. They had immediate success. You're using their creations and inventions to determine how much you hate them. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Nope.
Why don't you try learning from them? So that's just a story about, I don't know. Again, newly invented term, white male privilege. I don't know what it is. I think now with the internet, I call it PWP, pretty woman privilege. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole we could go down. I find it appalling and disgusting what women are doing online or the transactions I mentioned in my book, they have a newly invented term, sugar baby. The reason they picked baby is because babies are innocent. I mean, it was a brilliant concept, whoever came up with that stupid term, because babies are innocent. So who's going to make fun of a sugar baby? And this is you can edit this out if you want. I've never seen or heard of a baby who accepts cash in exchange for sexual favor. So I refuse to call them sugar babies. They shouldn't. They should be called prostitutes, escorts, or courtesans, because that's what they are. And I find it extremely appalling. But again, that's what happens when we glorify sex and perversion and this and that. And there's no accountability, and parents are afraid to say things. Yes, I understand things are expensive. Yes, I understand the allure of possibly making $250,000 doing something extremely perverted online or through text messages. I mean, that's your choice. I'm not going to support it, celebrate it. That's kind of what we're talking about. That's the whole thing with my book. If you want to be a courtesan and you want to call yourself a sugar baby, fine. But you're not going to get mad at me for disagreeing, and I'm not going to allow you to put it in TV shows and influence other young women. You go do you go do that. But I'm not going to outright call you a prostitute, because that would be rude and maybe insensitive to your situation. Maybe you have a very, very unique financial situation. So you go do you, but you're not going to turn around and call me prostitutophobic or sugar babyophobic or you're a sugar shamer. I mean, those are words that you can imagine. You're a sugar shamer. No, I have morals and values, and what you're doing is illegal, and you're better than that, is what I would say to somebody. And if you want to go do it, but don't call me names.
I mean, kind of as we head towards the end, like your book, part of we still need truth, reason, and in the debate in order to move forward. And your approach, I think, is definitely something that a lot of conservatives could learn. Because a lot of conservatives, and like I told you before the show, one of my good friends, they match or they try to match that anger from the other side. You know what I mean? And you can still have your conviction without dehumanizing the other person.
Right.
And that's, to me, that's like the biggest key thing. That it's not even just that it's not part of society. It's not taught anymore.
Right.
That's, to me, that's the biggest problem. And when you go to get people to try to accept that, they reject it.
Well, polite debate is gone. And again, didn't vote for Obama. I hate that he invented Gay Pride Month. I can't stand that he made it a month and we still have Veterans Day, Father's Day, and Mother's Day, Memorial Day. I think that's just a slap in the face to those other people. But he was articulate and he was a good debater. He was classy. Yeah. You look at, oh man, and again, I know it's TV, but in my book, I ask, does art imitate life or does life imitate art? And I say
life
that
imitates art.
Unfortunately, life imitates art. And I say unfortunately, because if you look at the art the last 20 or 30 years, Jersey Shores, screaming basketball wives, cheating shows, The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, everything's drama. You look at the presidential debates, I like President Trump. I voted for him every time, but I just, to call people names and make fun of them, in my opinion, it's not presidential. Maybe some people like it. Maybe some people find it funny. Maybe the younger people and the younger generations, this is how they're going to be, but I don't think it's being the best version of yourself. It doesn't cause anybody to win them over to your way of thinking. And you probably don't want it done to you.
Right.
I forgot where I was going with that, but what was the thing you said before? You said you were saying, what were you saying?
It's like, the debate and moving forward and the ability for conservatives to engage in not dehumanizing people and engaging in that crazy stuff, to the other side, and trying to be a moderate, and in the middle person. Like when it comes to handling people that, not handling, but when it comes to interacting with people that you don't agree with.
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of like where I go with it.
You know,
Who is it? I'm
who is
trying to
it?
think of.
I'm trying to
Gosh,
think
I
of
can't think of the guy's name.
the guy's name.
Oh, Bill Maher. Bill
Bill
Maher.
Maher.
You know, he's
Bill Maher.
he's
Yeah.
You know,
definitely moved
he's
very
definitely
towards
moved
the center,
very towards the center.
Yeah.
and
And I
he had
can
dinner
actually
with Trump.
listen to him now. If you
Yes.
compare him to Stephen Colbert, I did not like Colbert. Colbert to me was somebody who got picked on in high school, and he grew up and he found a way to get revenge. He's like, now I'm going to find a way to get revenge on all the people who picked on me. He was so smarmy and disrespectful and mean. And Bill Maher used to be like that. Now I like listening to Bill Maher. I simply listen. I'm open-minded with him. There are people, like I said, Sean Hannity on Fox, I used to like him. Now all he does is whine and complain and criticize. I don't listen to him. And if we're going to bring about change, which I think both the people on the right and the left want that, and even if they realize it might take 5-10 years, they want it for their children. I mean, any one of us, I would say on the left or the right would say for our children, our nieces and our nephews, no, we don't want them growing up in a world where there's constantly school shooters. There's constantly late night talk shows making fun of the other side. There's constant arguments. There's constant canceling. Wouldn't it be great if we went back to the 80s? I mean, you get that cool video game behind you. Let's go play video games and listen to music and eat pizza and flip our collar up and all get along and not worry about who you voted for and what your sexuality is and on and on. Kind of where I know what I was going to say is think. So it's multifaceted. I think there are people like George Clooney who like to stir the pot and who want to influence people. And I'll say Mel Gibson on the other side. And I always warn people, listen, they're actors. They're really good at memorizing lines and making faces. That's about it. They don't have a political science degree. They don't have the psychology degree. So
Yeah, they're
stop
doing it to
listening
get
to
a
them.
rise out of you.
Yes. And I think there are people who they have a platform and they abuse it. But I think there are also people who want to see some sort of pleasant change. I don't agree with everything Spike Lee talks about, but when I hear him talk, he does talk about, at least back in the day, he said, the reason I make my films is because I want the rich, bougie country club people to see what people go through in the hood and the ghetto. I think that's cool.
Yeah. No,
It doesn't mean you have to alienate people, call them names, and shove your agenda down their throat.
No,
And
not
you know
at
what
all,
else? In history, the pendulum always swings, always. So guess what the left is, because the left swung it so far over here, it's bound to swing back at least to the middle, if not over to the right. So you're going to get what you gave.
Yeah, no, that's what they're starting to see now with the shift in the electorate towards the right.
And
Like Bill Maher said, he goes,
he
"You
goes,
can't tell people how to raise their
people how to
kids.
raise their kids.
You're going to
Right.
lose every time."
Right.
And values are decided in the home, not in a school.
Right.
But on the flip side to that, parents got to do a better job teaching their kids values these days.
Well, and I talk about that Clinton concept.
Yeah, part of the reason schools are the way they are is because somehow they got defaulted to teaching values.
Well, you had this generation that grew up, I call them Clintonites, and I don't mean that in a derogatory manner, but, the Clintonites said, no, let Bill get away with lying, cheating, and having an affair because I want to in my own life. So they raised their kids that way. So those kids are now in their 30s and they are raising their own kids. That's how we got to participation trophies. That's how we got away from giving a student an A versus an F. No, you can't do that. It's a pass or a fail. That's how we, allow men to play in women's sports, because no, you can't tell somebody they can't do that or can't participate. Let's just all kumbaya and sit in a circle. And that's not the way the world works. That's not the way the family dynamic works. That's not the way a car engine works. There's friction. There's stronger parts and weaker parts that support the stronger part. I mean, it's just, it's craziness. And when you eliminate accountability and you let a child who is, say, 12 years old and being indoctrinated by social media and the school start telling the parent how to parent or how the household is going to be conducted, that's insane. The parent is hopefully, let's say, 40. So they're three at a minimum. Let's say they're 36. So they have 3 times as much experience. They're 3 times older. They have 3 times the amount of education, 3 times the amount of success and failures. That person should be trusted to lead the person who has 1/3 of that experience. Experience is very valuable. And it doesn't mean they say, well, I learned that as I got older, I should believe this, this, and this. It just says, based on my experiential opinion in life, this is what we're going to do to stay safe. This is what we're going to do in order to keep paying our real estate taxes so we can have this home and have a little more freedom, on and on.
Yeah, no, and it's I just wish people would be more open to it. I guess that's probably the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't seem like that is the one thing. Mark, give people, as we wrap up, give a final push because people need to know a lot more of like how the impacts of the Clinton actions in the 90s kind of really set things. And I don't necessarily hold me personally hold Bill Clinton directly responsible for it because people got to make the right choices, but they look at it and they ran with it.
Right. And again, I'm not attacking or blaming. It's not even about blame. I'm not blaming Bill Clinton. I'm talking about his actions and how American society supported everything he did, and then they emulated. They put it into practice.
Yes.
And that is how we got to how we are. So it took me 10 years to write this book. I have accurate quotes and statistics. And then the last 2 chapters talk about how we can reverse the curse. Right now, it's available. I'm going to click on it. It's on a website called, what's it called? It's lulu.com. And if you just go, if you go to Lulu, LULU, and look up the Clinton consequences. Actually, if you do a Google search on my name and Clinton consequences, it'll take you there. But it's on that website. The book is being formatted for Kindle and Amazon. It's just taking it's crazy again because of corruption and AI out there. It takes a really long time for Amazon to approve. My first book, it was done in, I want to say 30 minutes. This one is taking well over 30 days. They keep sending back revisions. So in the meantime, just look up the Clinton consequences, Mark Smoler, and Google will take you to lulu.com to get a copy of the book. It's fast reading, it's honest, it's accurate. Whoever you vote for or whichever way you tend to vote, I think you'll find it engaging. There's a little bit of humor in there, but mainly if you're looking for a way to speak up and speak out, if you're looking for a way to make a difference, if you want to understand how we got here and then how to reverse the curse and be a positive difference in the world, I think you're going to like.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's Clinton, man. There's always tons to dive in there. I mean, you can make a whole encyclopedia.
Yes. I don't want to see him pass anytime soon, but it's probably going to happen. And I think when he does pass, that there's going to be a lot more people are going to go back and revisit and dig this up. And I'd love to see the book sell and get it in people's hands to make a positive difference. I'll be, candid and selfish. Yeah, if he passed in whatever, a short amount of time and all of a sudden people started buying it, great. But I'm not wishing that. I do talk a little bit about Hillary and Obama and how they kind of picked up the baton and ran with it and villainizing people and just doing a great spin job. Anytime you disagree with them, they're just going to label it as well, you're like Hitler or you're this or you're that.
Oh my gosh,
and
I know.
I think everyone wants to have a more of a peaceful conversation. It doesn't, I'll tell you what, it doesn't do your heart, your blood pressure, your psyche, or your life any good to sit there and watch people yelling and bickering at each other. I don't know why people watch those Desperate Housewives show. I don't know why people watch the Kardashians. It doesn't do you any good. And like you had mentioned earlier, it's kind of a they do it on purpose. They put so much sugar in the cookie, and you know it's bad for you, but you just keep coming back for more and more and
Yes.
more until all your teeth fall out. And don't be that. I mean, don't, you're lining their pockets. So why not come to the middle ground, and be a nice person, be respectful, and make a positive difference in the world?
Yeah, that's what we got to do. Everybody, the
The
Clinton
Clinton
consequences.
consequences.
Mark Smoler, check it out.
Check it out.
And I encourage you
And I
to.
encourage you to,
But like here at the Middle Ground Mike, we're always working to
we're
cut,
always working to
through
cut
the noise.
the noise.
A new slogan we've
New
really been
slogan we've
pushing
really
is
been pushing
no
is
left, no
no
right,
left,
just
no right,
straightforward.
just straightforward.
I like that.
Sign up for our
Sign up for our
newsletter.
newsletter.
Comes out every 2 weeks,
Comes out every
people.
2 weeks, people.
We appreciate you
We
tuning in
appreciate you
tonight.
tuning in
And like I
tonight.
said, check
Like
out
I
this
said,
book
check out
because
this book because
there's a lot more to Bill
there's a lot more to
Clinton
Bill
and the
Clinton
whole
and the
situation than
whole
a lot of us
situation a lot
realize.
of us realize.
Thanks, Mark, and I
Thanks,
appreciate you
Mark, and I
coming on.
appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. It was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.